Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, but I want to say this is really a privilege for me to share some of my research with you in this presentation. So I will start by outlining the relationship between disciplinary knowledge-making practice and academic discourse, discussing how dominant epistemological orientations found in different disciplines may shape the rhetorical and the discourse strategies used by members of these disciplines in academic communication. I will then share the findings of a study of mine on cross-disciplinary differences in academic discourse. Finally, I'll wrap up the presentation by discussing pedagogical implications that follow from the findings of my study and proposing some pedagogical strategies for socializing students into the academic discourse of their chosen disciplines. Let me start with the relationship of disciplinary epistemology to academic discourse. British sociologist Basil Bernstein points out academic knowledge produced by different disciplines has different structures. He divides these structures into two broad categories, that is hierarchical and horizontal knowledge structures. Hierarchical knowledge structures are characteristic of the natural sciences, which aim to create very general propositions and theories and integrate knowledge at lower levels across an expanding range of apparently different phenomena. In contrast, horizontal knowledge structures are characteristic of the humanities and the social sciences, where knowledge is produced by so-called specialized modes of interrogation and represented in specialized languages. For a discipline dominated by a hierarchical knowledge structure, knowledge growth takes the form of theory development. That is, a more general inclusive theory will integrate a previous theory which may be more particularistic. This can be visualized as a triangle where the tape represents the small number of general theoretical propositions and the base represents the wide range of empirical phenomena covered by these theoretical propositions. By contrast, in a discipline characterized by a horizontal knowledge structure, there exist multiple codes of legitimation that are used to make and justify knowledge claims. These specialized languages make different and often opposing assumptions, with each language having its own criteria for legitimate texts, what counts as evidence, and what counts as legitimate questions or a legitimate problematic. Thus, as this figure shows, a horizontal knowledge structure produces knowledge by introducing new languages. Carl Mayton, an Australian sociologist of knowledge based in the University of Sydney, extends Bernstein's theorizing of knowledge structures to include a knower dimension. Mayton argues that, apart from the epistemic dimension of knowledge, there is also a social dimension of knowledge production and organization, because social power and knowledge are intertwined, but they are not reducible to one another. Knowledge comprises both sociological and epistemological forms of power. As in Bernstein's conceptualization of knowledge structures, Mayton distinguishes between hierarchical and horizontal knower structures by the degree to which they integrate and subsume new knowers. A hierarchical knower structure can be portrayed as a pyramid of knowers, where the ideal knower occupies the pinnacle position, and new knowers are integrated into the existing structure and occupy the lower levels of the pyramid. A horizontal knower structure On the other hand, they emphasizes the biological or sociological backgrounds of the knowers, and therefore allows for more equal and independent relationships among them. Furthermore, Merton combines the knowledge and knower dimensions and proposes that each disciplinary field is characterized by a distinct knowledge-knower structure. Generally speaking, hard sciences integrate hierarchical knowledge structures with horizontal knower structures. The humanities, the humanities, by contrast, combine a horizontal knowledge structure with a hierarchical knower structure. Now, these two contrasting types of knowledge knower structure represent a knowledge code and a knower code, respectively. Disciplines dominated by a knowledge code have a more structured hierarchical body of knowledge, which is verified against established scientific principles and procedures. In such disciplines, the backgrounds of the scientists or knowers are largely irrelevant to knowledge making. By contrast, disciplines operating with a knower code depend more on the distinct individual characteristics of academics who construct disciplinary knowledge. Knowledge claims tend to be legitimated by appealing to knowers' personal voice, expertise, experience, and authority. Depending on the particular combinations of specific knowledge and knower orientations, disciplines can actually be located on a continuum of dominant epistemological orientations, ranging from the knowledge code at one end to the knower code at the other end. Such knowledge-knower orientations underline discipline-specific academic discourse, and this is borne out by several research projects I have completed with my collaborators over the years. Because of time constraints, I'm going to summarize only one project in this talk. Now, clear cross-disciplinary variation has been found in a recently completed study of an academic speech genre. A paper reporting on parts of this study has been published in the Journal of English for Academic Purposes. In this study, my collaborator and I were interested in the rhetorical structure of 3-minute thesis presentations. This is an increasingly prominent, yet largely unexamined academic speech genre, whose users are graduate students only. In 3-minute thesis presentations, graduate students are challenged to report their dissertation research in just 3 minutes to a disciplinarily heterogeneous audience, following very strict competition rules, such as the use of only one static PowerPoint slide. In our study of this new genre, we try to answer 2 research questions. First, what is the move structure of 3-minute thesis presentations? Second, are there any systematic generic variations in the 3-minute thesis presentations by PhD students from different disciplines? We adopted the ESP approach to genre analysis and developed by John Swales to establish the rhetorical moves found in a corpus of 142 presentations. These presentations were delivered by PhD students coming from over 70 universities across the world and 4 different disciplines. That is biological sciences, mechanical engineering, education, and history. Now, these disciplines represent natural science, technology, social sciences, and humanities. They were chosen to operationalize 2 broad disciplinary distinctions, that is hard versus soft disciplines, and the pure versus applied disciplines. Biological sciences and history, biological sciences and mechanical engineering were selected as hard disciplines, education and history as soft ones. Biological sciences and history were also chosen to represent pure disciplines, and mechanical engineering and education was selected to represent applied disciplines. To analyze our data, we followed the steps recommended by Biber and colleagues for conducting a corpus-based MOVE analysis. First, the 3-minute thesis guidelines and relevant documents were consulted to identify the overall communicative purposes of the genre. Second, the competition judging criteria was studied to compile an initial list of rhetorical functions of text segments and types of moves. For example, the competition judging criteria regarding comprehension and content focus on the background, results, conclusions, and the significance of the presented research. Consequently, they are very useful pointers to the local rhetorical functions served by these segments of the presentations. Now, this initial list was then combined with another list of move types identified in the literature on relevant written and spoken academic genres. Third, a tentative coding scheme was then developed on the basis of the combined move types and used in the pilot coding to test its adequacy. The coding scheme was iteratively revised and fine-tuned as discrepancies were reviewed and new move categories emerged. Finally, based on the results of the pilot coding, a full coding scheme was developed to include definitions and examples of the identified move types. To answer our first research question, we identified 8 distinct moves. These moves, together with their frequencies in the corpus, are summarized in the table you see here. Following previous studies, the cutoff point for an obligatory move was set at 80%. So a move was classified as obligatory when it appeared in 80% or more of the presentations in our corpus. But it was regarded as an optional move when it appeared in lesser presentations. Based on the frequencies presented in this table, there were 2 optional moves, that is, the framework move and the results move. All the remaining moves, that is, orientation, rationale, purpose, methods, implication, and termination, appeared in more than 80% of the presentations, and therefore these were obligatory moves. Now my focus here is on our answer to the second research question, that is whether there are systematic generic variations in 3-minute thesis presentations by students from different disciplines. To address this question, we ran 8 direct logistic regression analyses on the move frequency data. In these analyses, the outcome variable was presence of a particular move in a presentation, and 2 of the predictor variables were the soft versus hard and the pure versus applied disciplinary distinctions. Here are the relevant results yielded by the statistic analysis. First, the variable of hard versus soft disciplines was found to be a statistically significant predictor of the framework. Specifically, presentations from the soft disciplines were over 9 times more likely than those from the hard disciplines to include the framework move. Second, the variable of hard versus soft disciplines was also a significant predictor of the methods move. Presentations from the hard disciplines were nearly 10 times more likely than those from the soft disciplines to employ a methods move. Finally, the variable of pure versus applied disciplines significantly predicted the results move. This move was over 3 times more likely to appear in presentations from the pure disciplines than those from the applied disciplines. Now, these findings could be explained in terms of disciplinary epistemology. First, Soft disciplines are typically characterized by a hierarchical knowledge structure where knowledge claims are based on attributes of knowers. Who you are is more important than what you are discussing or how you are discussing it. In contrast, hard disciplines possess a horizontal knowledge structure where the established principles or procedures of scientific inquiry matter more than who the knower is. Consequently, knowledge generation in soft disciplines tends to rely on the unique insight of the knower or specialized language, in other words, a sound theoretical framework developed by a well-respected knower. Such a specialized language legitimates knowledge claims and persuades by stressing the knower's individual authority and expertise. By contrast, knowledge claims in hard disciplines work within a known framework of assumptions and do not depend on stressing the unique qualities of the knowers, but on following the established scientific principles and procedures. Thus, there would be a less need for hard discipline 3-minute thesis presenters to use the framework move as a means of emphasizing their epistemic conviction. Second, the hard discipline presenters' more frequent use of the methods move could also be plausibly attributed to the knowledge knower structures that are prevalent in the disciplines. As we have seen earlier, hard disciplines operate by a knowledge code, which means knowledge legitimation in these disciplines depends crucially on following established procedures and instrumentation. Thus, for the hard discipline presenters, to emphasize and elaborate on the adequacy of procedures and the rigor of methodology would be very persuasive. By contrast, in the soft discipline presenters worked in fields dominated by a knower code. In such fields, the legitimation of knowledge claims can be enhanced by displaying individual aptitudes, attitudes, and dispositions. Consequently, the soft discipline presenters were under much less pressure to describe and justify their methods than their hard discipline counterparts. Finally, the pure discipline presenters' more frequent use of the results move was also attributable to the underlying epistemological characteristics of pure and applied disciplines. For pure disciplines, these disciplines are actually concerned with creating, explaining, and interpreting knowledge. But applied disciplines are primarily oriented towards knowledge application. Because of this cross-disciplinary difference in the epistemic orientations, the pure discipline presenters would understandably be more motivated to report their results than their applied discipline counterparts. Now, what implications do the findings of these and other studies have for the teaching and learning of English for academic or specific purposes? First, the 1001 things making up what we call academic discourse are not autonomous, monolithic, or homogeneous across disciplinary communities. For this reason, a generic pedagogical approach to academic discourse, as found in many current undergraduate and graduate courses, misrepresents the discipline-specific nature of academic discourse, fails to capture its diversity and complexity, and thus is unlikely to teach academic discourse effectively. A second and related implication is that academic discourse as a literacy practice needs to be taught and learned in relation to specific disciplinary context, that is, within a sound understanding of how its various features are shaped by and serve disciplinary knowledge knower structures. Third, novice academic writers, especially English as a second language students, can benefit greatly from explicit instruction in how generic and linguistic resources can be used to communicate in a disciplinarily meaningful way. Of course, explicit instruction takes time, and given the numerous academic discourse features crucial to effective academic communication, no ESP course can hope to teach all these features to students. This then leads me to the last implication I would like to propose here. That is, ESP programs should equip students with useful strategies to explore disciplinary norms in the use of academic discourse. For example, student writers can construct their own small-scale corpora using freely available corpus tools and conduct corpus-based analysis of academic discourse features themselves. In the final analysis, student writers must develop the strategic competence to explore and acquire academic discourse as a repertoire of social resources that serve situated knowledge-making practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much.